Have you ever had someone tow your $350,000 combine right in the middle of harvest season just because some HOA lady thought it was too ugly for the neighborhood's vibe? Yeah, that just happened to me. I'm Ethan Hayes, a farmer in Stonefield, Nebraska, and Diane Powell, the self-proclaimed queen of Crestwood Heights, just made the dumbest mistake of her life. She had no clue, probably because her eyes were somewhere else, that the land I work on isn't under her control. It's leased from the state of Nebraska for strategic agricultural production. So when Diane towed my combine, she didn't just mess with a farmer. She picked a fight with the whole federal system. And I'm already chuckling thinking about the look on her face when she realizes it. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the latest video. I've lived on the edge of Stonefield for a decade now, right where my fields meet the neatly trimmed lawns of Crestwood Heights. It's an HOA neighborhood, where people build identical houses and hold meetings to argue about how long trash cans can sit out before someone gets fined. Me? I'm farming 300 acres of corn and soybeans, keeping the state contract running smoothly. My land isn't just land. It's part of Nebraska's big plan to secure the food supply. Crestwood folks usually leave me alone. I don't crash their barbecues. They don't touch my silos. That kind of peace lasted until Diane took over as HOA president and decided she was the sheriff of aesthetics. Harvest season is when I live and die by the minute. A storm at the wrong time or a few days delay can ruin the whole crop. My combine, that 6-ton beast, is my right hand. Without it, I'm not just losing money, I'm risking the state contract that keeps my farm alive. So picture me this morning, driving out to the field, coffee still steaming in my hand, then freezing like I got hit by lightning. The combine's gone. Vanished. No wheels, no tracks, just a big empty spot where I parked it last night. I blinked, thinking maybe I was seeing things. I checked around the barn, rummaged through the shed, even peeked down the dirt road like a giant machine could just wander off. Then I saw it, a piece of paper taped to the barn door, flapping in the breeze like it was mocking me. I yanked it down and read, "Abandoned equipment towed by order of the Crestwood Heights safety team." I laughed out loud, loud enough to echo across the field. Abandoned? That combine was cutting state corn 12 hours ago. Safety team? The only thing unsafe was Diane's brain when she thought she could pull this off. I stood there, crumpling the paper in my fist, and it hit me. Diane, with her neon green jacket and HOA power trip, had called some cut-rate tow crew to haul off a machine heavier than her entire boardroom ego. She didn't just cross a line, she dove headfirst into a legal trap. That combine isn't just mine. It's part of the state's agricultural contract. Towing it during harvest isn't a joke. It's a federal crime, the kind that gets you visits from guys with badges who don't ask if you want coffee. Diane thought she was teaching me a lesson. Turns out, she just wrote herself a ticket straight to trouble. I pulled out my phone and dialed Anna Reed, the state AG inspector I've known forever. "Anna," I said, trying not to laugh so my voice wouldn't shake, "you won't believe what Diane just did." I told her everything, Diane, the tow, the ridiculous, abandoned note. Anna didn't laugh. She just said, "Stay put, Ethan. I'm coming with a deputy." That's when I knew the show was about to start. I leaned against the barn, staring at the half-cut cornfield, my coffee gone cold. Crestwood Heights is the kind of neighborhood you'd think only exists in sitcoms. Every house looks the same, lawns trimmed like they're measured with a ruler, and every weekend, folks gather to grill and bicker about who left a bike out too long. I don't care. I'm busy farming, keeping my Nebraska state contract on track. My land isn't just land. It's part of the state's big plan, and I'm proud to keep it humming. Crestwood folks know that. They eat my corn, then act like my silo ruins their feng shui. We coexist like reluctant neighbors. I leave them alone. They don't mess with my machines. That's enough. Then Diane showed up. She moved from Omaha to Stonefield a few years back, used to manage a bank or something, and seems to think she was born to rule. When she got elected HOA president, I heard rumors at the local diner that Crestwood was in for a shakeup. I didn't pay much attention. I was busy with the harvest, my combine, dodging storms. But Diane didn't take long to prove me wrong. She started like a kid with a toy gun, shooting at anything to see what'd fall. First came a warning letter about my roosters, said they were disrupting community sleep. I nodded, locked the coop earlier, figured that was that. Then she targeted my silo, called it a visual crime. I shrugged, told myself to let her write letters for fun. But the real trouble kicked off when harvest season hit. I was working the North Field, 160 acres of state-leased land that wraps around Crestwood like a horseshoe. It's not my land to sell or decorate. It's under a state AG contract, meaning I work for Nebraska, not Diane. I drive my combine at dawn, cutting corn, singing along to country tunes, thinking maybe this year would be quiet. Big mistake. Day 2, Diane appeared at the fence, hands on hips, green jacket glowing like a traffic light, clutching a clipboard like she was declaring war. I stopped the machine, stepped down, waved hello. She didn't wave back. You're violating community peace standards, she yelled across the fence, voice shrill. This machine is disrupting the visual experience. Visual experience? I nearly choked on my coffee. I told her, like I had a dozen times before, that this land isn't HOA property. It's state AG land, governed by county and federal law. She brushed it off. It's in our line of sight, she snapped, as if that magically gave her legal power. You're tanking our home values. I kept a straight face, said, it's a combine, Diane, not the apocalypse. She didn't crack a smile. I climbed back on my machine, figuring Diane would just send another pointless letter, hold a meeting, print flyers full of big words, and call it a day. I even joked with Greg Larson, a buddy in Crestwood, that she'd probably hang a no combines banner at the neighborhood gate. Greg laughed, told me to watch out, but I brushed it off. Diane was just a loudmouth, right? I locked the combine like always, went home, slept soundly. Little did I know, the next morning, my combine would be gone, and I'd realize I'd underestimated Diane's narrow-minded obsession. I blinked, thinking maybe I wasn't awake yet. A combine doesn't just sprout legs and run off. I circled the barn, checked the shed, even waded to the field's edge like a $350,000 machine was hiding somewhere to prank me. Nothing. Just dirt and a few stray stalks fluttering. I went back to the parking spot, heart pounding, and saw a note taped to the barn door, flapping like it was taunting me. I ripped it down, scanned it. Abandoned equipment towed by order of the Crestwood Heights safety team. I laughed out loud, loud enough to echo across the empty field. Abandoned? That machine ran 12 hours last night, cutting state corn. Safety team? The only thing needing safety was Diane's head when she cooked up this dumb plan. I stood there, crumpling the note, trying to wrap my head around how someone could be so bold and so clueless at once. Diane had actually called some shady tow crew, probably the kind that snags expired cars at strip malls, to drag off a machine heavier than her whole power trip fantasy. I shook my head, thinking back to all the times she stood at the fence, yelling about visual experience or property values. I told her over and over, this land isn't HOA's, it's state AG land, protected by county and federal law. Diane didn't listen. She thought her clipboard was the law. And now she'd shot herself in the foot. No, thrown her whole leg into a shredder. I grabbed my phone, checked for any state calls. No missed calls. No texts. If the state needed to inspect the combine, they'd notify me first. I started piecing it together. Diane, with her control freak meltdown, had gone beyond all reason to do this. I smirked, realizing this wasn't just a personal spat. That combine wasn't just mine. It was listed in the state's AG contract, part of Nebraska's strategic food production plan. Towing it during harvest? That's not a slap on the wrist fine. It's a federal offense, the kind that gets auditors and cops knocking. No coffee offered. I dialed Anna Reed, the state AG inspector I've worked with for 6 years. Anna, I said, stifling a laugh so my voice wouldn't crack. You won't believe what Diane just pulled. I laid it all out. The missing combine, the HOA note, the abandoned nonsense. Anna didn't laugh. Her voice was calm, but I caught the edge. Stay there, Ethan, she said. I'm grabbing files and calling a deputy. Don't touch anything. I hung up, a mix of anger and glee surging like a wave. Diane thought she was schooling me on community peace. Instead, she just enrolled in a crash course on federal law, and I had front row seats to her flunking. Less than 2 hours after my call, Anna Reed rolled up to my farm in a white SUV with the Nebraska state logo, followed by Mike Turner, a local deputy, in his patrol truck. I stood waiting at the lot, still clutching the Crestwood Heights abandoned equipment note, fighting a grin as I thought about the mess Diane Powell had gotten herself into. Anna stepped out, carrying a thick folder, her face serious as always when she deals with land disputes. Mike, a big guy I've shared coffee with at the local diner, just nodded and said, "What the hell's going on, Ethan?" I smirked, handed them the note, and told them how my $350,000 combine got towed like it was some kid's abandoned bike. Anna shook her head, while Mike chuckled, saying Diane was about to learn a lesson she'd never forget. I led them to where the combine was parked, pointing out the tire tracks heading down the dirt road. Anna inspected closely, jotting notes on her clipboard, then asked about the state contract. I handed her the papers I keep in my truck: land lease, combine registration, all stamped red by the state of Nebraska. "This isn't just my machine," I said, loud enough for Mike to hear. "It's part of the strategic AG program. Towing it during harvest pokes at federal law." Anna nodded, silent, but I caught a twitch at her lips. She knew Diane hadn't just kicked a hornet's nest, she jumped right in. Mike asked if I had proof Diane was behind it. I pulled out my phone, opened the video from the combine's camera, something I almost forgot about. Crystal clear, Diane, neon green jacket glowing under streetlights, standing by the tow truck, pointing orders at the crew, even pausing to snap photos like she'd bagged a trophy. "Take it now," she yelled in the clip, voice smug. I passed the phone to Anna, grinning wide. She recorded her own victory lap. Anna watched, raised an eyebrow, then handed it to Mike. "Confessed on camera," Mike said, shaking his head. "Bet she thought she was making a movie." Anna started making calls, checking the tow company with the state office. 10 minutes later, she came back, face sterner. "Ethan, this company's not licensed for heavy AG equipment," she said. "They tow cars from mall lots, not state combines." Diane picked the wrong crew for her dirty work. I laughed hard, picturing Diane flipping through a phone book, picking some cheap number, thinking she was clever. She didn't just break the law, she broke it badly. Then Diane showed up, right on cue. She marched across the field, green jacket peeking past the fence, clipboard clutched like a shield. I stood by Anna, arms crossed, waiting to see how the Crestwood Queen would play this. Diane stopped, eyed Anna and Mike, then barked, "What's going on here?" Anna turned, cool as stone, flashing her badge. "Miss Powell, I'm a state AG inspector. Can you explain why you ordered state AG equipment towed from active land?" Diane blinked, face paling, but she puffed up. "It was parked near our neighborhood. It's a nuisance. It ruins the view." Anna wasn't amused. "A view isn't a legal right, ma'am," she said, voice sharp as a blade. "This land is under a state contract, protected by federal law during harvest." Diane opened her mouth to argue, but I cut in, couldn't help it. "Told you before, Diane. The 160 acres around Crestwood are state land. I've leased it for 6 years." Her face went from red to purple, then some color I swear I've never seen. Anna kept writing, voice even. "You'll cover the cost to retrieve the machine, plus fines. This goes to the state attorney's office." Diane stammered, trying to shift blame. "It's probably a misunderstanding." The board agreed, but Anna raised a hand, shutting her up. "We have video of you directing the tow," she said. Diane froze, her clipboard nearly hitting the dirt. I crossed my arms, smiling, watching her go silent for the first time since she took over the HOA. Anna and Mike headed back to their vehicles, leaving Diane standing there, panting like she'd run a marathon. Just a week later, I got a letter from her lawyer, some guy from Omaha with a name like a toothpaste ad. It claimed I was disrupting the community and demanded I stop all farming near Crestwood. I read it and laughed so hard the barn cat bolted. Diane suing me? She just bought another ticket to the legal circus, and I was ready to run the show. I'm no lawyer, but I know my land. The 160 acres around Crestwood are state Nebraska land, leased by me for 6 years to grow corn and soybeans for the strategic AG program. It's not HOA's, not Diane's, and definitely not part of her dumb vision. Just to be safe, I called my sister, Rachel Hayes, a lawyer in Lincoln who's helped me with land paperwork before. "Ethan," she said over the phone, half worried, half amused. "Who'd you piss off that they're suing you for community disruption?" I told her everything, the combine, Anna, Diane's clipboard. Rachel cackled, said, "Send me that letter." She's got no shot. I sent the papers, feeling like I'd just loaded a hunting rifle. Court day in Stonefield. I wore a clean shirt, brought the state contract and a land zoning map I checked 100 times. The courtroom was a small room, smelling of old wood and burnt coffee, with Judge Harris, who once bought my corn for a county fair. Diane sat across, next to her lawyer, green jacket swapped for a red suit, but that smug look unchanged. Her lawyer stood, rattling off how my combine wrecked the peace and lowered Crestwood property values. I had to bite my lip to keep from laughing. Peace? They're talking about a corn cutter, not a machine gun. My turn. I stood, voice steady but firm. "Your Honor," I said, handing over my papers, "this land isn't Crestwood Heights. It's state land, leased by me under a federal AG contract. That combine's part of Nebraska's strategic food production. I pointed to the map, boundaries marked clear. Miss Powell has no legal claim here. Diane squirmed, whispering to her lawyer, but I wasn't done. She towed my combine, broke federal law. Now she's suing me for doing my job? She ought to sue her own clipboard first. Judge Harris covered his mouth, probably hiding a grin. He reviewed the papers, shook his head at Diane's lawyer, and banged the gavel. Case dismissed, he said. Miss Powell, don't waste this court's time again. I walked out, Rachel clapping my shoulder, grinning wide. You just made her a laughingstock, she said. I shrugged, thinking that was the end. But Diane doesn't quit easy. A few days later, Greg Larson, my Crestwood buddy, told me Diane was lobbying the Stonefield Town Council to declare my land public domain. The idea was to force me to hand it over to the county, cut my state contract, and clear the way for Crestwood to build more houses. I smirked, but this time I was a bit worried. The town council isn't the state. They might buy Diane's sweet talk if she played it right. I reached out to the Carter sisters, 2 farmers on Stonefield's edge who fought zoning battles before. Diane has no idea who she's up against, the older Carter said, eyes gleaming. We plan to show up at the town meeting, papers in hand, with a few other farmers to make it clear state land isn't HOA's toy. I knew Diane would be there, in her red suit or green jacket, ready to preach her old community values sermon. But I also knew I had the state contract, the law, and now allies. Just a few weeks after Judge Harris tossed her lawsuit in the trash, I heard from Greg Larson, my Crestwood buddy, that Diane was planning something called the Crestwood Harmony Festival to save face. The idea was to turn the neighborhood's common area into a big party, food trucks, games, a local band, to prove she was still the community's queen. I laughed hard when I heard, but then spotted a detail sweeter than roasted corn. To get into Crestwood, every festival vehicle had to pass through my road. And Diane, as usual, didn't ask permission. The road to Crestwood, what I called Combine Way, though it wasn't official yet, was my land. Not state land, not HOA land, but private property bought by my grandpa back when Eisenhower was president. Crestwood had access rights, but only with my okay, and that deal expired last year. Diane didn't know or didn't care. She was too busy planning her festival, mailing invites across Stonefield, hanging flashy banners at the neighborhood gate. I sat on my porch, sipping coffee, picturing Diane in the crowd, preaching community harmony like she'd never towed my combine. Then I decided, if she wants to play, I'll play along. Festival day, I stood at the head of Combine Way, holding my own clipboard, borrowed from the barn for extra flair. I called the county sheriff, asked for Mike Turner, the deputy who'd laughed his head off watching Diane's tow video. Mike, I said, I need you to check permits for vehicles on my private land. Mike showed up, sporting a sly grin. When the convoy of food trucks and tents rolled in, taco truck, ice cream van, even a balloon guy, I raised my hand to stop them. Where's the permit? I asked, cool as ice. The drivers stared like I was speaking Martian. Permit? Miss Powell said just drive in. I smirked, showed them the land contract, proving Combine Way was mine. Mike nodded, told them to turn around. Half the convoy bailed, slinking off, leaving Diane with a festival as flat as day-old soda. But I didn't stop there. If Diane wanted to show off, I'd show her a real party. I threw a farm day on my land, right next to Crestwood. Set up tents, invited all of Stonefield, free, of course. Had roasted corn, apple cider, sack races, and the star, my combine, gleaming after its tow yard rescue. I let kids climb up, told them how it cuts corn, while adults snapped photos, laughing like it was a county fair. The local country band, originally booked by Diane but swayed to my side, played loud on a makeshift stage. Crowds flooded in, old folks to kids, turning my field into Stonefield's hotspot. Across the fence, Diane's festival was a wreck. I stood on a rise, looking over. Her tent sagged, just one ice cream truck and a few limp balloons left. Diane gripped a megaphone, trying to shout about community spirit, but no one listened. They were too busy grabbing my free corn. Some Crestwood kids even snuck through the fence, begging to see my combine. I grinned, showed them around, catching Diane's faint yelling about her failed plan. The kicker? She tried crashing my event, green jacket peeking at the gate. I called Mike, reminded him of the trespass order I filed last week. Diane got stopped cold, left alone outside the fence, watching my crowd have a blast. I didn't stop at embarrassing Diane once. The festival was just the warm-up. I knew it was time to go big. Diane wanted to be queen? Fine. I'd show her that her kingdom didn't even have a gate without me. I went to the Stonefield County office, Filed to rename the road Combine Way. Official. Stamped. Signed. I told the clerk, who'd bought my soybeans before, that the name honored Nebraska's farming backbone. She smiled, nodded, and 2 weeks later, I had the permit. But I didn't stop at paper. I hired a crew, built a steel gate at Combine Way's start, rigged with an electronic lock. I sent Crestwood's board a letter, telling them to sign a new access deal free. I'm not petty, but they had to acknowledge my ownership. Most residents signed fast, including Greg Larson, who'd warned me about Diane. Diane? She refused, called it community extortion. I shrugged, flipped the lock, and she had to take a pothole-riddled detour 3 miles out. For extra fun, I ordered a giant combine-shaped mailbox, painted fire engine red, set it up at Combine Way's entrance. It stood 6 feet tall, with fake blades and spinning wheels, a masterpiece I called Diane's Folly Monument. Lisa, the mail carrier for all of Stonefield, cracked up when she saw it, said she wanted pics for social media. Crestwood kids loved it, crowding around, asking me combined stories. Every time Diane drove by, I saw her glare at it like she could set it on fire with her eyes. I stood on my porch, sipping coffee, grinning wide. She brought it on herself, and I just made sure she'd remember. But it wasn't over. One afternoon, Greg swung by the farm, bringing homemade cider and news juicier than a bumper crop. Ethan, he said, voice low like he was spilling a secret, Diane's in deep with the HOA board. Turns out, she'd used Crestwood's funds to pay for the tow truck that nabbed my combine, plus some management costs for her own home repairs. Greg spotted invoices in an internal email, and other residents started asking questions. I laughed hard. She thought no one checked? I asked. Greg shrugged. She thought she was untouchable. They're meeting to audit the books, Greg said, winking. She's done. It turned out Tom Bennett, a retired Marine living in Crestwood, blew the whistle. Tom's tall, deep-voiced, bought soybeans from me for his family barbecues. He saw invoices in an internal email. Diane accidentally sent it to the whole neighborhood and started digging. Greg said Tom gathered a stack of evidence, receipts, emails, even a note from Diane demanding management stress reimbursement. Management stress? I nearly choked. Diane didn't manage anything but her grudge against me. Tom, with the cool head of someone who's seen combat, called for a board meeting to check the books. And Diane, like a cat cornered, had nowhere to run. The meeting went down in Crestwood's common area, same spot as Diane's flop of a festival. I wasn't there busy watering soybeans, but Greg gave me the play-by-play like I had front row seats. Diane walked in, no green jacket, just a gray suit, trying to look professional. She started with a speech about her sacrifices, but didn't get halfway before Tom stood, holding invoices like a battle flag. How do you explain $3,000 for towing a combine? He asked, voice booming. Diane stammered, said it was community protection costs. Tom didn't let up. And $5,000 for your house repairs? What did the community get from your new porch? The room erupted in murmurs. One neighbor yelled, I can't even afford to fix my fence. Diane flushed, blamed, accounting errors, but nobody bought it. Tom moved to vote Diane out right then. The result? Nearly the whole board raised hands, except one of Diane's pals, who slipped out quietly after. Diane got the boot, standing alone in the yard, her clipboard hitting the ground like her power crumbling. Tom was voted interim president, and Greg said he laid it out plain. Crestwood needs peace, not war with neighbors. Neighbors, meaning me. I laughed hard hearing it, picturing Diane's face as her own neighborhood turned on her. A few days later, I got invited to a Crestwood barbecue, first time in a decade living next door. I walked in, a bit nervous, but folks swarmed me with cookies, cider, and apologies. An old guy said, we didn't know she was that crazy. A young girl asked about my combine. I sparkling. I told them about Combine Way, the red mailbox, and the whole Diane saga, making everyone roar. I looked around, saw they didn't see me as the scenic blight farmer anymore. They saw me as the guy who stood up, and I saw them as regular folks who just wanted to live quietly. I stood on my porch, watching a gray moving truck creep out of Stonefield, rolling down Combine Way one last time. Diane Powell sat in the cab, not looking back, not glancing at the fire-red combine mailbox I built to needle her. I'm Ethan Hayes, a farmer in Stonefield, Nebraska, and I just watched the Crestwood Heights queen who towed my combine, sued me, and tried to bully me off state land, run off like a whipped dog. I smirked, sipped my coffee, feeling like I'd binged a series with the sweetest finale. Diane lost, not because I was loud or heavy-handed, but because she dug a hole so deep even Crestwood wouldn't pull her out. After that wild meeting where Tom Bennett exposed Diane's HOA fund abuse, Crestwood changed like night to day. Tom, with his deep voice and straight-shooting Marine style, took over as interim president, and he didn't waste time fixing things. He called me to a barbecue last week, handed me a plate of cookies, and said, "Ethan, we owe you a big sorry." I grinned, said, "No debt, just don't tow my combine again." The crowd laughed loud, and for the first time in 10 years, I wasn't just the farmer next door. I was the neighbor they wanted over for dinner, the guy they asked about growing corn. Diane was another story. Greg Larson said after getting ousted, she tried one last board meeting to reclaim her honor. Nobody showed, except her trusty clipboard. Her for sale sign went up right after, dangling out front, but no buyer's bid. Who'd want a house tied to all that drama and a porch fixed with community cash? Diane finally packed up, rented a truck, and headed for Omaha, where I bet she's telling someone she was a victim of backward farmers. I laughed hard thinking of it, picturing her in a new apartment, scowling at combine ads on TV. Crestwood's a different place now. Tom runs friendlier events, no more meetings about lawn heights, just barbecues inviting Stonefield farmers. Last week, he brought the whole neighborhood to my field, let kids see the combine run. I let them climb up, showed how the blades work, heard them giggle when I faked a horn blast. A little girl, hair in a bow, asked if I made combine whey. I winked, said, "I just named it, but the mailbox is all me." They laughed, and I saw Tom pat my shoulder, like I'd been knighted in Stonefield. Looking back on the fight with Diane, I realized I didn't need to yell or throw punches. I won because I knew my land, 160 acres of Nebraska state land, 6-year contract, county, and federal law. I won because I was patient, letting Diane shoot herself in the foot over and over, from the combined toe to her festival flop. And I won because Stonefield, slow as it was, sided with what's right. I didn't just keep my farm. I built a bridge to Crestwood, where a year ago, I was just the eyesore guy. I decided to do something to keep that spirit alive. I started a small class for Crestwood kids, teaching them about farming, how corn grows, why combines matter. Tom agreed, said he'd use HOA funds to buy seeds for the kids to try planting. I looked at my field, corn golden in the sun, and saw combine way lit up past the gate. That name, that red mailbox, is a reminder that Diane could come and go, but this land, this community, is forever. Diane Powell's been gone a month now, her gray truck probably rusting somewhere in Omaha, and Crestwood Heights is no longer a battlefield of warning letters or that neon green jacket. I'm Ethan Hayes, a farmer in Stonefield, Nebraska, and I went through a fight I never asked for, from the combine toe to the festival bust, from courtrooms to combine way. But now, as I look at the fire-red combine mailbox glowing at the gate, I smile. Diane thought she controlled everything, but she didn't get the land, the law, or the people here. Stonefield feels like a fresh chapter now. Crestwood, under Tom Bennett's hand, is a neighborhood I actually want to visit. They held their first AG fair last weekend, right on my field, with all of Stonefield pitching in. Kids ran everywhere, clutching my roasted corn, giggling as they climbed the combine. Moms brought apple pies, dads asked about my harvest, and Tom stood in the crowd, slapping my back like family. "Ethan," he said, eyes gleaming, "you made this better than my barbecues." I laughed hard, told him to try driving the combine, and we both cracked up like kids. It wasn't just a fair, it was proof Crestwood and I aren't two worlds anymore. Combine Way is the heart of every story now. Every letter, every package to Crestwood carries that name, bold on the label like a badge. My combine mailbox became an accidental photo spot. Lisa the mail carrier says she saw it online, snapped by hundreds. Kids call it the giant combine. Adults chuckle, retelling how Diane tried to own a road that wasn't hers. I look at the steel gate, its electronic lock blinking, and think, this isn't just my land. It's my legacy, my grandpa's, and Stonefield's, a statement that no one, clipboard or jacket, can steal what belongs to the truth. Diane lost not because I was smarter or tougher. She lost because she didn't know when to quit. She towed my combine, thinking it was a small win. She sued me, believing she could push me off state land. She threw a festival, hoping to claw back her reputation. Each time, she shoved herself deeper into a hole she dug herself. Me? I just stood firm, state contract in hand, law behind me, and a grin every time she stumbled. I didn't need to shout or swing. I won because I knew how to wait, when to laugh, and that this land, this community, would always speak for me. I started the farming class for kids, like I promised. Last week, I took them to the field, let them plant soybean seeds, showed them how corn grows. One boy asked, "Uncle Ethan, did Combine Way really beat the mean lady?" I laughed, ruffled his hair. "Not the road," I said. "The truth did." They nodded, not quite getting it, but I saw their eyes light up. That's all I want, for Stonefield to remember that land, like people, has its own story. I sat on my porch, coffee cold in my hand, watching Combine Way shimmer under the moonlight. The Combine mailbox stood there, red as fire, like a flame that never dies. Diane came and went, but Stonefield's still here, with corn, kids, and folks who now call me friend. I smirked, thinking of the biggest lesson. You don't need to be loud to win, just stand in the right place and let the truth talk. And when I drive my combine down Combine Way tomorrow, I know I'm not just a farmer. I'm part of this place forever. The story of Ethan Hayes and Diane Powell and Diane towed my combine during harvest reflects real tensions in the U.S. today, especially the clash between rural values and sprawling suburbs, plus the issue of power abuse in small communities. In Stonefield, Nebraska, Ethan, a steadfast farmer, faces Diane, Crestwood Heights HOA president, who tries to impose aesthetic rules on state AG land just because she doesn't know the law and looks down on others. From Diane towing Ethan's combine, suing him baselessly, to throwing a failed festival, the story shows the folly of acting without research and the fallout when one person puts ego over the common good. Ethan wins not by yelling or fighting, but through patience, knowledge of his state contract, and community support as Diane isolates herself. Naming the road Combine Way and building the combine mailbox symbolize claiming rights smartly, while uniting Stonefield and Crestwood. The takeaway is that in today's diverse America, where communities often collide, farmers versus city folks, individuals versus collectives, understanding and respect are key. Don't be like Diane, acting rashly out of bias, like when she towed the combine without checking ownership. Instead, take a page from Ethan, know the rules, stay calm, and build bridges with the community, like how he threw the farm day or taught kids about the land. In a polarized society, patience and truth, like Combine Way lit up every night, will always lead to lasting victory. Subscribe to catch more stories about land and community like my Combine Way battle. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video with even more Stonefield drama.